Hey everyone, and welcome back to Corey's Cast. In this episode of the podcast, I get to sit down with Jennifer from RNK as she takes us through the different product offerings that are available. She's going to talk a little bit about the founding of RNK, some of the background of it, and take you through those really popular products that you see on the shelf that you might not know come from RNK Distributing. Before we get started, please make sure if you're watching on YouTube that you're subscribed to the channel. It's going to be right down at that bottom right-hand corner. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, please make sure you are listening, liking, and following to those pages as well. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in Jennifer. Hi, how are you?
Hey, Corey, I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. I'm so very excited to be here. Anytime I have the opportunity to talk about Quilter Select and Floriani, I am absolutely all over it.
I am so excited that you're here. To give the listeners a little bit of background, Jennifer and I actually met at PIQF in 2018.
Oh, I don't know. Let's not count.
I think it was 2018. It might have been 2017. I don't remember.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, and we had an absolute blast while we were there. I think the best memory that I have from PIQF, there were a lot, but the one with all of us when we went to Buca de Beppo and had dinner
Oh my
that
gosh,
night,
that's right. I probably have those pictures somewhere.
that was a riot. We had so much fun, and it was a great time. And then we got to reconnect at the Houston Quilt Market in 2024, and I am oh so thankful that we did. And now she is here with us on the podcast, and it's going to be a great listen today. So, Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your journey through quilting and sewing, and kind of what brought you to RNK?
How did I get here? Well, first of all, thank you for that painful reminder of how long it's been since we met at PIQF. So I was doing the math when I went through, was preparing for today, and let's just say it's been more than 20 years of what I would call like professional involvement with the industry. So I've always loved to create, and it didn't really even matter what. So I was very fortunate many years ago to start working at first as a freelance educator for a machine manufacturer, then to spend quite a number of years with them on staff. I did product development work, worked as an educator, worked as a training manager, worked with long arms, embroidery machines, embroidery software, and then from there went on to manage independent retailers on the West Coast, which is where you and I connected, which was a lot of fun. If it has a needle in it, I absolutely love it. So I had the pleasure of working with all of the brands of machines. We carried multiple long arms. We carried commercial embroidery machines. So I have been very fortunate that the passion that I have for this industry has been something that I've also been able to do from a professional standpoint. About almost 3 years ago now, I had the opportunity to move to the East Coast, or needed to take the opportunity to move to the East Coast to be closer to my family. And when I reached out to RNK, they very graciously found me a home here. So I'm super excited to be back on the manufacturing side and to be able to continue working with amazing products.
I love it. Yes, you definitely have that passion for all things needle, like you said, and it's great to hear a little bit about those experiences that you've had that brought you to your current role there at RNK Distributing. I want to talk about a little bit because I'm just nosy, and we're all nosy here at the podcast. What does a day look like as the Chief Operating Officer of RNK?
Well, it sounds very fancy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I would love to say, it starts with having a cup of coffee and reading the Wall Street Journal, and making my way through. But it's a very entrepreneurial role, I think is a kind of a good way to describe it. And so every day is just a little bit different. I work with our retailers, I work with consumers, I work with our staff here. Our educators are all over the place. So honestly, every single day is just a little different. Let's see, what did I do today? Today, I took a number of pictures. I also have the privilege of working with a stitch along that I'll talk a little bit about towards the end. So I'm getting some of the handouts done for our stitch along. I'm taking photos for our social media pages. We have some product that I can't tell you about today. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to come back. That's on the water. It's due any day. We went around looking for some random spools of thread that we had no more in the back, but we wanted to be able to get that order out, and we found them, by the way. So, preparing for this podcast. So, it really is different every single day. And I think that's part of the beauty of it and what I love so much about this particular role.
Yeah, I can totally relate to you. Everyone always asks me kind of what my day to day looks like
Yeah.
here at Linda's, and I couldn't even tell you what my day to day. It changes every single day, but I think that's what keeps it interesting, and that's what keeps it fun.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about the RNK, kind of its founding and its beginning, and a little bit of history on it, because myself, I knew a little bit about RNK, but I always knew a lot about Quilter Select and
Mhm.
Floriani, but I had no idea that they were housed with RNK. So can we talk a little bit about the founding, and how RNK began and how it got to where it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. So RNK Distributing is sort of what I would call our parent company or the umbrella company. RNK was founded just over 20 years ago, and it came about to answer a need that was new to the sewing industry. Home embroidery machines were just starting to hit the market about 20 years ago, and retailers and consumers alike, no one had household product. There was commercial type product, which really is very different. Commercial embroiderers are stitching the same thing over and over and over again. Home embroiderers, if you can put it in the hoop, we are going to embroider it. And so the needs are very, very different. And so that's where the company was born. It was to meet those needs. And so under that R&K umbrella, the Floriani products brand or product division was started. And it's embroidery threads, decorative threads. There are variegateds, there are twist threads, heavier weight threads, and then a number of stabilizer products. We have embroidery software in that family. We started to bring in what I call products that do tricks. So things like mylar and puppy foam, things to enhance your embroidery. Then from there, Alex Anderson, who is, I will call her our spokesperson for lack of a better term. So Alex was at a retreat, and this was about 15 years ago now. And as the story goes, she ran out of a particular fusible product that she needed for the project she was working on. Went to the local sewing machine retailer that was in the area, and was able to find a Floriani product that she used to complete her project. She loved it. She thought it was wonderful, but wished maybe it was just a hair lighter so that it was a little bit more appropriate for a quilting product. And so that was where the relationship got started. She reached out to the founders of the company. They had a lengthy conversation, and from there, the product line was born. So although most people know ruler, mat, rotary cutter for those products, really where we started was our foundation products, things like fusible webs and stabilizers that are appropriate for quilt related projects versus hooped embroidery.
Okay, got it. That's a little bit more. I love watching Alex on the Quilt Show, so it's
Mhm.
cool to hear the history of how these amazing products kind of came about,
Yeah.
for her, like you said, for lack of a better word, for the spokesperson
Mhm.
of those products. So I want to pivot into, actually, you brought up Quilter Select, and I really want to talk about it. Can you take us through the unique features and product offerings of Quilter Select? Because I love the Quilter Select products. I use them almost daily, and the majority of the stuff that I do, the machine quilting rulers, the regular
Mhm.
cutting rulers. So, kind of take us through that overall kind of mindset, and then what separates those Quilter Select rulers apart from everything else on the market, and why they are so incredible.
Okay, so I understand we have all day to do this. So we're going to go detailed through every single product.
Let's do it.
Haha. On another day, maybe. Okay, so our what I would call our flagship products are our rulers. So although we started with those foundation type products, what we're known for are the rulers. And so oftentimes people will pick up the ruler, and the first thing they notice is the fact that it's gold, right? So you always want to go for the gold. But on the back side of the ruler, it has a non-slip coating that covers the entire back surface of that ruler. So rather than having to spray something or put, the little tabs, which can, give you a little bit of rocking that's happening, when this ruler is positioned on a piece of fabric, it's not going anywhere, right? So you can see that that is not going to slip or slide around. So a couple of things, will be the result of that. Number one, your cuts are going to be more accurate because you're not chasing the ruler around. Number two, you're not chasing the ruler around. And so it's also kinder and gentler on our hands or on our wrists because we're not having to push and put a lot of impact, right, on those joints.
Right.
Funny story. I thought it was kind of funny. I was at a consumer event maybe about 6 months ago, and a lady came up to me and she was not happy. She said, I really don't like your rulers. They don't move when you put them on the fabric. I thought, well, they're not supposed to. But what her point being, she couldn't wiggle the ruler around to fine tune it. So we do have, and I realize now that I'm telling that story, I didn't bring one back here, but we have little ruler handles that you could place on that ruler so that you can fine tune the position of the ruler. So it's exactly where you need for it to be. The other thing that Alex was very adamant about is that the product be useful for both right and left-handed quilters. Alex is a left-handed quilter. So all of our rulers are numbered going in both directions. So they truly are appropriate for right or left. What I found as a right-handed user is that I can pick the ruler up, put it down on my fabric in any direction, and I can still read it. So it's legible from all the sizes, from all the sides. Your most commonly used angles are marked on here. So if I need to cut a 45-degree angle, maybe I'm mitering something, or, back in let's say the olden days or the early days of quilting, before we had so many different shapes for our rulers, people use that 60-degree line, right, rather than 60-degree diamond rulers, which are so much easier. And yes, there is one in the Quilter Select line, but it is possible, right?
Yeah.
You can actually get away with using your standard ruler. The rotary cutter is another kind of important key piece to not just our line, but also to your toolbox at home as a quilter. And again, they're right and left-handed, only important for those, right, that need one or the other.
Right.
But it does also mean that if I need to use my other hand for something, maybe I'm cutting at an awkward angle, which we don't recommend. I would recommend you walk around your cutting station, but we all know we do it.
Yeah.
When I drop that ruler down, you'll notice if you pick a Quilter Select ruler or cutter right away that it has some weight to it. And the reason for that is to keep your arm where it belongs. I see a lot of people doing this. I was teaching at Road to California a few weeks ago, and I watched people with their arm up here because they were using very lightweight rotary cutters. So this is going to keep your arm down in the right place, and that additional weight helps to move through the fabric, so you're not having to push, right, like we do with some of the others. And then
I want to say real quick, I want to comment on the rotary cutter because I remember when we chatted at Market and you said, have you ever used the Quilter Select rotary cutter? And I said, no, I haven't. I'm very honest. No, I haven't. And you said, okay, let's walk over here and let's do it. And you handed it to me and I went, whoa, hey now. But
Yeah.
I wasn't going to the gym at the quilt market. Okay. But I can completely understand the benefit of having that for, getting that nice straight arm. And I didn't think about it that way. But yeah, when you first pick one up, it's like, okay, all right, she means business.
That's right. It is a quality tool that you've got right there. And then from, another just practical standpoint is, Corey, you've probably done this, had rotary cutters where when it's time to change the blade, you take it apart very carefully and you lay all the pieces out so that you can put it back together. Well, this has just a little slider on the back, and then the pin has magnets. So your blade doesn't go flying across the room. And then the only thing that you need to do to put it all back together, is put your new blade on and then slide that little lever up. It's very easy, right, to work with.
That's nice. That's real nice.
I could go on for days.
Okay, I want to talk about new stuff. Let's go.
Okay, so the newest rulers, I've got two different groupings of newbies in our line. When I first got to Quilter Select, and I think I said I'd been here, it's almost 3 years now. We had lots of squares and we had lots of rectangles. And I thought, I would really love, I mentioned that 60-degree. Do I have a little guy in here? So we do have a 60-degree family. And I only brought some of the family. Apparently some of the family is out goofing off somewhere. I love 60-degree quilts. I think if I were only allowed to ever use one type of quilt block, it would be something with a 60 degree in it. So we have 60 degree diamonds. And if you have ever cut 60 degree anything with a ruler that does not have non-slip on the back, errors add up fast. So we have a 60 degree diamond. There's also a 60 degree triangle. And each of the rulers, this is kind of another uniqueness, there is a QR code on them. And so there's some type of a video or a primer project so that you can learn how to use that ruler. If there are any other 60 degree fans out there, you know that sometimes you need the right or the left little finisher or the quarter diamond. And I don't know how many times I've miscut with other rulers. It's supposed to go this way, or it's fabric up, or the fabric down. So these are for the right and the left quarter diamonds or half triangles. We also, there's a set of Dresdens, which I love. Again, with these kinds of funky shapes, you don't want things going anywhere. And then in collaboration with Poppy Cotton Fabrics, we have, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I didn't hold up mat earlier because the mat is, kind of covered up. But in collaboration with Poppy Cotton, we've done a pink mat that's a cutting mat on one side and a crafting surface on the other side.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that pretty?
That is
I do a lot of English paper piecing, both by hand and by machine. And for both, there's a lot of glue basting that happens. And so I love having the crafting side so I don't end up with messiness on my cutting mat. And then because you have to have a grouping to go along with it. So that's another one of my kind of pet projects is if we introduce something, it should be practical, it should be beautiful, and it should be in a group, right? We don't want one ruler and one something. We want a whole family so that they match nicely in the sewing room. So 4 rulers to go along with the mat in that beautiful Poppy Cotton pink.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I do want to mention that those rulers that you've been showing, and for those listening, you mentioned that the markings go, both directions. So if you're left-handed, you can read it, and if you're right-handed, you can read it. I think that is something that's amazing, and it's incredible that it sets you apart from so many other rulers on the market because it is an ambidextrous ruler. And when I'm working at retreat I just went on my first quilt retreat, by the way. I had a blast. I've taught at many retreats, but I've never just gone and just mellowed, which was fun. And being able to share that ruler with someone that was left-handed, that they've never used a Quilter Select ruler before. They were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing!" That they're feeling seen basically at that point, which I think is definitely incredible. Let's talk about you've got those stabilizers next to you there. Let's chat about stabilizer real quick. Why should I use Quilter Select stabilizer?
Well, because it is the best product. It was developed for quilting in particular. So within the line, and I use the term stabilizer loosely, we have a cutaway stabilizer and we have a tearaway stabilizer. In that class that I just did at Road to California, we went through all of these products and we used every single one in the class, not because you need every single one in a project, but to be able to experience them. And so the tearaway, I'm just going to open this. The tearaway is extremely, extremely lightweight. And when we are doing decorative stitching, we're doing a satin stitch for applique is a decorative stitch. And you really need something to hold that fabric or it will tunnel. And this is such a light, I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah, that is nice and thin.
How fine that paper is. And it just tears right away.
Wow.
So it's great for things like decorative stitching. It actually works beautifully as a little tracing paper as well. And because it is fusible on one side. And so if you have something that's real shifty and wiggly, you can fuse it if you need to. And that fusible also gives it a little bit of crispness as well. So great for those decorative stitches. Now I didn't bring everything back here, but a few.
That's okay.
Actually 2 tearaways. The cutaway that we have is very, very fine as well. For anybody out there that's used a traditional hooped embroidery, like mesh style stabilizer, the Quilter Select cutaway is very close to that, but it's even lighter weight. So if you were, and it's fusible. So if you were doing something like, let's say, a t-shirt quilt, and you wanted to stabilize that t-shirt, that knit fabric, so it's not stretching all over the place, that tearaway is beautiful for that. I like it for what I'm going to call a faced applique. So imagine, for example, all these little circles back behind me. I would not want to do this as needle turn, but if I were to stitch my fabric right side to that tearaway, that cutaway stabilizer, I could then cut a little notch in the back, turn it right side out, and it's very soft and won't add any bulk back in here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, one of my favorite ways to do applique. And then in terms of fusibles, we have several different weights of fusibles. Some are you iron it on and the other side is tacky. Some you iron it on, you position it, and it's a what I would call a dry adhesive on the
Mhm.
other side, so it's not going to fuse until you stick it in place. We have permanent adhesives, we have semi-permanent adhesives. We even have one that you sprinkle on your fabric.
Ah, look at that.
Mm,
I
yeah.
like that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
this is
That's
a nice one for basting if you don't want to pin or spray. Right? A
okay.
lot of people have sensitivities to sprays.
Yeah. That aerosol. That's nice. So that thank you for walking us through that. I
Mhm.
do want you talked about I want to go backwards just a
Yeah,
hair. You chatted about always wanting to have products in some type of grouping,
yeah.
going forward, trying to make sure that the line makes sense and that it all works
Mhm.
together. So someone that's listening right now or watching that has never tried Quilter Select before and says, "Okay, I'm ready to hop on the Linda's website and order some Quilter Select products."
What do they need?
What is kind of a great starter pack? What is from from your experience, from everything that you've seen, all the classes
Mhm.
that you've taught, what could someone say, these are my core X number of products that are going to get me started and get me going, and then I'm just going to fall in love and want to buy everything else?
Well, that is an excellent question. And Corey, offline, we should put together a little package for you. We did this. I'll do this from time to time when I'm out and about.
Hmm.
The largest mat that you can possibly get away with. But at a minimum, I would say if you have an 18 by 24 is a good size. You can cut most anything that you will need to cut with that 18 by 24. It'll take you a little longer to square up a quilt, but it's a great place to get you started.
Okay.
A 45 millimeter rotary cutter is another must. And then I would say a 6.5 by 24 is going
Hmm.
to be a great size. Actually, what's in the poppy cotton bundle, that's the reason we chose these sizes. So it's a 6.5 by 24, a 6.5 by 12, because sometimes it's just a little cumbersome to work with the big one,
Yeah.
a 12.5-inch square. Now, I say this in jest, it's true though. I have been at shows or in stores and I've had people ask me, well, do you have an 8.5 by 8.5 ruler, or do you have this size square or that size square? And we probably do at shows. We may be out of it. So let's use the example of that 10-inch square. My 12.5-inch square, I can cut anything from a 1 inch all the way up to a 12.
Yeah.
You don't have to have, we encourage it, but you don't have to have every single size square between 1 and 12.5.
Right.
So this is a great size for squaring up your most commonly used blocks. And then for the little guys, I do like to have my 3.5. The one other ruler that I would throw in, or that would be the next step, because a true beginner isn't going to need it, but by the time you make your second or third quilt, you'll probably wish you had it, is what I call a 3-in-1. And so it's meant for cutting half square triangles and quarter square triangles. There are lots of shortcut ways to do it where you're sewing squares together and cutting them apart. But at some point, you're going to start looking at your fabric and wanting your stripes to go in a certain direction. Or you're working with your scraps and you don't have a 10-inch square to start with. You have a 2.5-inch strip. So this would be the next one after you have your basic squares.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that. And that three in
Mhm.
one, I need to hop on the website and get one of
Oh,
that's
no.
nice. That is
Oh, I know where
nice.
you can get one.
I mean, I know where I can get one too. Yes. I also want to chat real quick. I know you offer different battings at Quilter
Yeah,
Select as well. Can you talk me through a little bit about those battings? What
sure.
their use cases are, and
Yeah.
why someone would choose it to work with their project?
So when we're looking in the Quilter Select line, so we also have some batting embroiderers on this, or embroidery battings for embroidery is what I'm trying to say. The battings that are made for embroidery, as a general rule, I would keep those for embroidery. And the reason being is that they are a denser batting and they're meant to withstand all of the needle penetrations that you get when we're doing hooped machine embroidery. In the core Quilter Select line, we have a wool, a cotton, and a cotton blend. I love wool batting. It's one of those things that I would say is kind of it's a luxury quilt. I wouldn't give my toddler, right, a
Right.
wool batted quilt, but it is so soft and so drapey. No matter, you can quilt that quilt to death and it
Mhm.
is going to stay soft and drapey. And I am a quilt it to death quilter, right?
Same.
The more, the better.
Right.
Um, your cotton and your poly, it really depends a little bit on use. So cotton tends to be a little heavier when it's been quilted than a poly cotton. So, if you have someone that really doesn't like that extra weight of that quilt on their body, they may be happier with a poly cotton and you'll have less shrinkage in your
Mhm.
poly cotton. Both of them quilt up beautifully by hand, by machine, by long arm.
Okay. Awesome. And you mentioned embroidery. I want to go ahead and
Mhm.
segue into it. We've been talking a lot
Yeah.
about Quilter Select. I want to chat about Floriani.
Okay.
And talk to me about why Floriani thread is my go-to thread, why the Floriani, I believe that you've got the stabilizer too.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, the
Mhm.
stabilizer and even the embroidery batting, even though it's a little denser. I want to
Mhm.
learn a little bit more about that, and maybe the listeners that are out there
Okay.
that do embroidery would like to know a little bit more about Floriani as well.
So, and I feel like at some point we maybe should do just like a whole thread, just talk about threads. We have an
Yes.
open thread bar.
Yeah.
Floriani. So back in the early days of machine embroidery, primarily what was available was rayon. And a rayon fiber is not as durable as a polyester fiber. So the core thread in our line, our 40 weight Floriani embroidery thread, is a polyester, but it's not what I would call, like our grandmother's polyester.
Right.
Back in the old days, where you didn't use polyester threads, and you certainly didn't use them on cotton fabrics because the cotton would give before the poly would give.
Right.
There are different weights and different twists, and so that's not true of quality polys today. So our Floriani embroidery thread has an extremely high sheen, which sets it apart from other 40 weight polyester threads that are out there. It has the look of rayon, but the durability of a polyester. 360 beautiful and amazing colors, and I'm pretty sure that they can order that whole wall of thread from you,
Yes.
as a matter of
Yes.
fact.
They can. Yes.
It's absolutely stunning, and I use it. I've used it in my long arm. I've used it in my multi-needle embroidery machine. I've used it in my household embroidery machine, and it's absolutely beautiful. But the sheen you get is unmatched in polyester.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what about the stabilizers and the batting real quick?
So each of the stabilizers, this is true of everything in our line. We don't bring a product to market just for the sake of bringing a product to market. It needs to fulfill a job. And so, back to that history of stabilizers and things that were out there, I can remember now. I'm sure that someone is going to take from this, I should go get paper towels for embroidery. Don't take that from this. But back in the early days, I can remember, looking at chat forums and that kind of thing. And people would say, oh, well, these sandwich wrappers, they come right out of the package and they're the right size for the giant 4x4 hoops that we had at that point in time. And yeah, they fit, but they're not formulated for safety for your machine, and they really were not meant, right, to stand up to washing and drying and wearing.
Right.
So we have, cutaways, tearaways, washaways, stabilizers that I call them our stabilizers that do tricks, right? They might be adhesive and they wash away and. So any embroidery situation that you can come up with. I'm embroidering on cork and I'm backing it with velvet and I'm probably going to use a metallic thread. We have a stabilizer that will take care of that for you.
That's incredible. I like having that versatility and all those different
Yeah,
options available because not every project is the same,
exactly.
and having those options is really, really, really great.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to chat if you can, just a little tidbit, just a little, give us a little something. You
Okay.
mentioned you've got something on the water,
We do.
so can you talk to me about any new products or innovations coming to RNK? Even just a little smidge, just a
Just a little
tiny,
smidge.
tiny bit, yeah.
Well, there are probably some rulers that are coming
Okay.
in. We had a particular request over and over and over again, and the technology had not been there in the past for us to, even tiptoe into those waters.
Right.
So we'll be tiptoeing into those waters.
Yay.
And I've also had several requests for more efficient travel size rulers.
Ah, okay.
So if you were
Okay.
going to a workshop and you had to pack a suitcase and you needed to have what you needed to have,
Right.
you may see some of those things coming.
Wink, wink, nudge,
Wink,
nudge.
wink, nod,
I
nod.
love it.
Those
I
are
love it.
the more closely, right?
Yeah.
Towards the fall, there are some other ones that I think, Corey, wink, wink, you in particular are going to be
Oh, ho,
thrilled.
ho. I can already guess it in my head, so I'm
I
excited.
know, maybe we should have called it the Corey collection.
Oh my gosh, I would love
Not too late.
it. Let's chat. So I've got one more question for
Okay.
you. As the chief operating officer there, what is your current vision that you're seeing for RNK, and where do you see it going for the quilting industry and the sewing industry in the future?
Oh my goodness, that's a loaded
It
question
is a
right
loaded
there.
question. Yes.
I when I moved to the East Coast to be closer to family, this I hope to be the job that I retire from, and I'm not looking to retire anytime in the near future.
Oh, I hope not.
So yeah, I am looking for us to really broaden where we sit in terms of bringing the products that quilters, not only the products that they want to use, but more educational product. And this goes for our embroidery side too, but that more content that's
Hmm.
related to what we do with the product, whether that be in terms of designs or patterns or partnerships with up and coming designers, with established designers.
Right.
I feel like creating a bigger community
Hmm.
is something that's going to be really important for us. And finding some great partners like Linda's, to help us really educate consumers about what this product is all about.
Right.
We'll be reaching our 15th anniversary with Quilter Select this year, 2025. And it's still, I think we as a company are surprised every time we reach out to that person who's never heard of Quilter Select rulers before, and there are a lot of them out there.
Yeah, no, I can totally agree. From our visions kind of co-parallel with one another. The
Mm-hmm.
education and the content you're giving, everyone a little bit more access to what's
Right.
going on in all of our brains. We know so many things about these products,
Mm-hmm.
and we think, I even just got done doing a video that my mom said, she was like, I was traveling and talking with people about quilting, and they said they just don't really even know where to start. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, it's just like, yeah, you just do it, but that's not the way that
Yeah,
everyone thinks, and yeah, I understand that, and giving them a little bit more insight into it, once they build that confidence, then they're on their way. Yeah, they're
exactly.
headed with it, so I think that that's definitely incredible. Well, Jennifer, I want to thank you
Well,
so much. Oh, no, go ahead, go ahead,
one thing while we were
go ahead,
talking about education, and I
go ahead,
completely forgot, and then I looked across the room, and I'm like, oh, this might be something that would be of value to you or
go
to
ahead.
those that are watching, listening. We do a stitch along, kind of an ongoing stitch along on
Yes,
our
yes,
Facebook
yes.
group page, and the so for the this one we've only posted we post a block this year every 2 weeks for what I'm calling our sampler series, so that either A, if you are really, really new, you can take your time, and I'm calling it the slow stitch, right? Do you want to do the slow stitch version, or do you want to speed yourself along and play with color? So week one, you get block instructions and a color recommendation. Week two, you're going to get 3 or 4 other color arrangements for that same block. So it's up to you as the stitcher. Do you want to do the 20 block version? Do you want to do the 10 block version? Do you want to make 2 10 block versions? Whatever, it's kind of a choose your own adventure. But there's not a charge for it. There isn't anything that you have to have. There are some suggestions for things that will make your job easier. But all of that content is there. We post on Mondays. So
Awesome, that's great, and you said that's
yeah,
on your Facebook page?
that's on the official Quilter Select Facebook group
The
page.
official Quilter Select group. Okay, so then if you have a Facebook page, you would
Yeah.
how would someone find that page?
If you go to our open Quilter Select page, there's a link.
Okay,
Mhm.
fantastic. So I'll try to find that open page and put I'm sure you can send it to me too, that
I
open
think
page,
I
and I
can
can
do
put
that.
that link in the description for those that are, listening and watching. That's incredible, especially for it to be that free,
Yeah.
workshop. That's really, really nice of
Yeah.
y'all to
There's
do that.
a right now there's a 24 block sampler. All the content is still there. There's a what I call a technique sampler. It's the same block, but we do 8 at a time, 4 at a time, 2 at a time, half square triangles, fussy cut half square triangles, flying geese, all in that same. So you're learning all the techniques while you put that one together. There's a couple
Incredible.
of others that are out there too.
That's really, really
Yeah.
cool. That's awesome. I'll have to take a look at that even. That's fun. I didn't even know you were doing that. Oh, see, the more you know
In
when
my
you sit
spare
down with
time.
Jennifer. I know because yeah, we've got so much of that, right?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for spending some time with me today on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you for a little bit more insight into
You're welcome.
RNK. And we will talk with you later.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Alrighty, guys, that was a wonderful jam-packed filled with education podcast with Jennifer from RNK. If you're looking for more products from the RNK line, like the Floriani or the Quilter Select division, we do have a majority of them on our website, lindus.com. I'll also have those collections linked below. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.